Happy Tacos Thursday. What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B. And I got two co-hosts tonight. So and got my guy Shane and his daughter. How y'all doing today?
Good. Listen to say hi, Natalia. A little cameo. She won't be here for the entire show. Can you wave? You wave? No, no. She's like I don't know. She's confused right now, but it's fine.
It's
Um,
all good.
a lot of stuff to go over today. We're gonna try and get as much of it out of the way as we can. But first, we gotta show love to our sponsors. Aaron, who are they?
Oh, we have a SeatGeek. There's still football going on, and the college playoffs are going on. NFL still going on, but you got basketball as well and concerts. Why don't you use promo code tacos touchdown for $20 off your first purchase? So definitely shout out to SeatGeek. And then our next one is W Energy drink. If you need that all natural energy and you don't want those you don't want those jitters and everything, why don't you use our promo code Tacos Touchdown to get 10% off your next purchase? So shout out to our sponsors. So let's get into this college football a little bit.
I know it's hard to focus on it whenever she's like over here trying to mess with my sound equipment.
Hey, so you got your producer. That's what you're trying to tell me.
This is exactly who this is. My producer. Oh, now she waving.
Oh yeah. So we get into our college football. We got a couple of hirings, a return of a coach, and then we got a NFL coach now in the league with Bill Belichick. So just a quick glance. So what do you think about Bill Belichick as the coach of North Carolina?
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah,
I be honest with you, I didn't want him to be the coach of the Cowboys, but that at least made a little more sense than being the coach of North Carolina. Now I know you as a Longhorns fan, you don't like how it ended there with Mac Brown because I know Longhorns fans really appreciate everything that Mac Brown did for them in his I think it was 15, almost 20 years at Texas, and he goes to North Carolina. They're moderately successful for a little, but he does produce multiple NFL players, including most notably Drake May, who's now the quarterback of the New England Patriots, where actually Bill Belichick was the coach. But I don't really know exactly what it is Bill Belichick is supposed to do that's supposed to translate to the college game because Bill Belichick is very much a culture guy who needs control. And in college football, you can have culture, and as the head coach, you would definitely have the control. But does the culture that you want to bring, the concept of, no days off, that same stuff that everyone knows him for in New England, that sort of military-like way of doing things. And for those that don't know, he does have attachments. His dad was a member of the military. I believe he was in the Navy or something like that. Navy. But he's got no attachment to North Carolina. It was sort of an out of the nowhere type hire. I don't know if he's that desperate to get back into coaching that he's going to take a college football gig. But I also wonder if the NFL has passed him by. Because what we saw with him without Brady in those final years in New England – I know, baby girl, but I'm getting to that. Is that we saw him in New England. We saw a team that was so behind in how they ran offense and how the personnel was selected. Bill Belichick does not have a good track record of draft picks. So why would North Carolina assume he knows how to pick out high school talent? Yeah. His track record is finding guys, and some of them he can develop. His success story. I mean, he has multiple success stories, but his biggest success story was Tom Brady, right? And he's also able to implement his defensive game plan, a defense which he has had decades of success in. I know, going back to his time with Bill Parcells and the Giants, so he has defense experience. At the very least, I expected North Carolina's defense to be better. Yeah. But he's out here hiring his friends. He's out here hiring Michael Lombardi. His son is going to be in the coach in Waiting, which is in the contract. And anyone who knows me knows how much I really don't like nepotism unless it's earned. I don't really know what Steve Belichick has that makes him viable for that job. And one second.
Oh, you're good. One of my biggest question is how's he going to handle the NIL type of deal? Because he's never been a college coach in his whole career. So
if Saban couldn't handle NIL, why should I assume Bill Belichick can handle NIL?
Yeah, he's more of a grump than Nick Saban in a way. So I'm trying to figure out how he's going to handle college and high school kids reeling them in. Like, I get the first year it may work because they're like, oh, I get to be coached by a Super Bowl coach. But then after a year, they may say, It wasn't what I panned out. I'm gonna go transfer somewhere else. Because that's the
Yeah.
about where we live in. It's like they're not sticking for 4 years.
Yeah, and two of their best players, North Carolina, two of their best transfer portal. Their starting middle linebacker, who was all conference, he's in the portal, and their starting guard / center. Well, I should say stars line. He actually came back out of the portal after the Belichick news. He's I think his name is Austin Blask, if I remember his name. He's considered one of the better centers in the ACC. A lot of people think he could be a high draft pick next year. So that's some positivity there. But like you said, his culture, his mentality of it is not really something that really fits in the modern college football world. I'm not saying that he can't, coach guys up.
Yeah.
I'm saying that his way of doing things doesn't really mesh with college football. Once you get to the pros, at the very least, there's an era of professionalism. And even though college football really is professional football in a way, it doesn't have the same sort of professionalism that the NFL does in that way, because these are kids that are learning to be adults. In the NFL, these are adults, some of whom have families. So how they go about business is going to be totally different. So it's surprising.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next one, is like, what's going to be his thing about when it comes to? I just lost train of thought. Let me look at my notes real quick. Is social media, like, how is he going to handle social media? Because a lot of coaches are into social media now. I know he's kind of dabbled in a little bit.
I'll tell you exactly how.
I want to hear it.
We're on to Duke. We're on to Virginia. We're on to Miami. He ain't gonna worry about that kind of thing. That's not gonna be him. He's gonna focus on the stuff that he can control, and everything else is gonna be done by somebody else.
He's got to have somebody on it.
Yeah. So I think. I don't know, and you're right. There are a lot of modern day college football coaches that are active on social media. They have some sort, like an Instagram or a Twitter account or a Blue Sky account. They have something like that. Especially the younger coaches, the coaches that are like 50 and under. They had to understand that a lot of these players are putting out their mixtapes. They're putting out their commitments online. Belichick ain't about that, so he's gonna have to bring someone on who understands that, and at the very least to keep tabs on his recruits.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see him doing, like, I don't know if you remember that cringy dance Brian Kelly did at LSU with one of the recruits. I don't see Belichick doing that with any of them.
Oh, you talking about old Brian Kelly?
Yeah, you're doing
that boy more up north, but up here down Louisiana, we try a little bit different. He was aim for a better part of a decade, but he go down there for one day, all of a sudden he got gumbo in the back of his throat.
He really did change his accent all the way from, was he from the Midwest talking with a
Brian Kelly code switches with the best of them.
Yeah, he really does. He's in that list of opportunist coach. Not a fan of his accent, but I don't blame him looking for opportunities. He's a grown man, so I ain't gonna be mad about that. But we got one last one. So it's the return of Rich Rodriguez and his spread option offense back in West Virginia. So he's back in Big 12 country. What's your thoughts on about it?
Well, I mean, he had a successful run at Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State. I think he won like 27. He won like 27 games in however many years. I think most people know him more for like when he took Michigan job, and that was like his big break. Yeah. And he did nothing with that. I think they won like one. I think they went to one bowl game or something like that, and in his time there, and that was it. Then he goes to Arizona and has a little more success there. I think they won. Matter of fact, they won the Pac-12 in 2014, if I remember right. Yeah, 2014.
Yeah, they did.
They won the Pac-12 and they made it to the field. And then after that, it started to peter down, and that's been kind of like an issue for him. Is like once he has like a sort of a peak, he starts to hit more and more of a pit. I think West Virginia is hopeful that he can have a lot of that success he had in his early years at West Virginia when they were part of the then Big East. Because remember, he coached West Virginia from the early 2000s until the late. I think it might have been before. It was around like the late 2000s, around the time that he was hired in Michigan. But he was at West Virginia for almost a decade. He was part of that regime that brought in guys like Steve Slayton and Pat White. They were part of like that real dominant era of West Virginia football in the Big East. Every year that he was the coach there, West Virginia was a threat. They were continually a top 25 team that was always really nagging other teams. And, outside of Louisville, like consistently, no one else in the Big East could really touch them. And I think right now they realize that it's a new era of West Virginia football. This West Virginia team they have now is very much predicated on running the ball because they had guys like Garrett Green, Jaheim Bell, and CJ Donaldson.
Mm-hmm.
And that three-headed monster was going to be a run-heavy offense. But they don't really have that sort of passing attack that they wanted. Rich Rodriguez, like you talked about, that super spread, or how you phrased it, is supposedly supposed to bring West Virginia back into prominence. We'll see, because the Big 12 has become real competitive. And I know a lot of people want to, thumb their noses at the Big 12 because they lost Texas and they lost Oklahoma. But all that's done is made the conference even more competitive. And so what was a conference that was sort of overlooked has become a conference that pretty much anybody can win as long as they have the right personnel.
Yeah, it's definitely competitive, Big 12. You're still trying to figure out who's going to be the top dog. And you were thinking, some people may say Colorado, but end up being Arizona State this year. I mean, the coach he's only in his early 30s. He's the youngest coach.
Kenny Dillingham.
Yeah. I was like, and the one guy that we were talking about on X yesterday, it was Cam Scatterbo. I don't know if you got to see him play last week.
I've seen him play multiple times. I saw him play my Red Raiders. My team actually held 60 yards rushing. And a lot of his best runs really came after that game, because I really think Texas Tech, I don't want to give us credit, but we were sort of the catalyst for the rest of their season and how they were able to really attack defenses. And I was talking with my guy, Anthony Totri, who works for PHNX, and he covers the Sun Devils. And I was talking to him about how I really love their outside zone concepts. They love to bring on an extra tight end and have everyone have their lateral step, where pretty much everyone blocks the same guy and moves on to the next one. So like if the guard and tackle are on one guy, they take him, and then the tackle moves on to the next guy. Tackle, tight end, same thing. They get the same guy, and the tight end moves on to the next guy. It's sort of an elevation. It's a cohesive unit of blocking out on the edges. And Cam Scatterbo, who's I think listed at 6'2", 220 or something like that, he has plenty of power to get through that, and more than enough speed to make up the groundwork. And so all that running game, once they really figured it out, just took off and was really hard to stop from there.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder where he's going to go in this draft, because I see a guy that maybe you may looking at third or fourth, or you never know, because the combine still haven't came, so you'll see.
I think teams are going to look real hard at that 40-yard dash, because even though I don't think the 40-yard dash is really all that important in a lot of regards, I do believe with skill position players, there is some importance in terms of like, okay, does this guy have the speed we want for this position? Because if you're offensive lineman, I don't care what your 40 time is.
Yeah.
If you're a defensive tackle, I don't care your 40-yard line is. I want to know those guys. I want to know how fast you are within 10 yards. With running backs and receivers, and even in some cases tight ends, yeah, okay. If I'm going to have this guy run a go route, or if I have this guy blocked out in space and have him have an open alley, do I think he can take it the distance? Sure. But outside of that, the 40-yard dash is almost irrelevant. But I think with Cam, I think right now teams have like this. I think right now, if I had to guess, he's probably a third, fourth round pick, like you said. I thought that was probably a good projection for him. I do wonder, like, if he runs, let's say, below 4.5, so 4.49 or better, does that not improve his draft stock? Because he is a big physical runner. But if he runs a 4.6 or worse, that's going to move him to day 3. It just is.
Yeah, once he running back under that 4.6, you're definitely looking at like maybe a high fifth or maybe a 6th. But if he runs like a sub 4.5, then you looking at maybe late second, early third, or maybe. I'm not going to put it in say first round, because that's not in the range. But I definitely want to see where he's at. There's a lot of other players we'll definitely be discussing when it comes to that time. But let's get into the next thing, and let's get into this heartbreaking loss against the Bengals. We lost DeMarvion Overshown
that sucked.
To a terrible injury. We had like the worst luck when it comes to linebackers for these past 15 years. And I just hate to see that
I know,
player
Sean like Lee, Leighton Vander Esch,
that Gwynn,
that win. Bruce Carter was like he didn't have any sort of serious injuries, but he had them. Devontae Holloman had the neck injury that really and he was starting to come along too. That really sucked. Jalen Smith. But Jalen Smith's
Yeah.
he got over his injury. And he had like 2 really good years, but then the speed.
Yeah.
And the good news is obviously there's no nerve damage. That was the positive news. And so a lot of people are speculating the earliest he could be back, is maybe like October, right? So like right in the heart of the season. Yeah. I think realistically, and you might disagree, I don't think we're going to see him again until 2026.
Yeah, I'd rather see him until 2026 where he could at least get a full recovery. I don't want to rush it where he gets it hurts. It goes back to doing the same thing again. It's like we should look at another linebacker, but just let him fully heal because he's already had that torn ACL. But just don't rush it because that's one of our biggest downfalls when it comes to it. Like we have a really, really great player, but we want to rush him back in. And in our cases, it hasn't worked out. It hasn't panned out. So I just hope he has a speedy recovery and everything, but just take time. If it's 2026, so be it. But we're getting to our next one, and that is the progression of Brock Hoffman. We kind of discussed it a little bit. Yeah. So what do you think about him playing at center after Cooper Beebe went down with the concussion?
No, I thought he played fine. I mean, center is his natural position, so he didn't really have any sort of like unfamiliarity with the position. I just firmly believe that I think he's found his niche as a right guard on this offense because people forget Cooper Beebe was listed as the second or third center in before training camp. Mm-hmm. He took that job. Cooper Beebe has been a really, really good center. So I had no problem with Brock Hoffman being the fill-in center for now, but once Cooper Beebe comes back, I want Brock Hoffman as my right guard, and I want him as my right guard moving forward. Yeah. Because, and everyone talks about this, when Brock Hoffman is out there, is he the most technically sound? Not always. But he's the nastiest guy, and it has a sort of like trickle-down effect with the rest of the guys that they start playing with a little bit of nastiness and a little bit of edge. You see guys like Terrence Steele get a little chippy. You see guys like TJ Bass getting chippy. You see, Tyler Smith has already been chippy, but you see him getting it out there as well. It is a sort of a culture thing that we talk about with Bill Belichick, but in this case, it's with Brock Hoffman. Brock Hoffman plays with a lot of power and a lot of grit. And he's one of those guys that once he has you latched up, he doesn't really let go. Yeah. And what you really like with him is if you remember back in the game, there was a play in which Rico Dowdle ran a dive right up the middle, and it was a simple A-gap dive between Cooper Beebe and Brock Hoffman. Cooper Beebe was able to get to the second level to the linebacker because Hoffman got off the snap so quick and hit up the nose tackle that it opened up what was like I think a 6 or 7 yard gain for Rico. Yeah. And that's been sort of the epitome of what this interior offensive line has looked like with Brock Hoffman there, and we want to see moving forward.
Yeah, and when you think of your interior alignment, you want to have that nastiness on there because, especially going against those one techs or defensive linemen, you want that extra nastiness, and you like you said, you've seen it go around the offensive line. They have a little edge to them, and that's what we've been wanting in this offensive line. For the longest, we've been too finesse, and when you for offensive line, you want guys that kind of go a little extra after the whistle, but not enough to get a penalty. But just to set the tone for the game, like we're not playing around, and Rico's gonna get them an extra 6 or 8 yards or whatever. So I like Brock Hoffman at right guard and for the future, and Cooper Beebe at center. We're seeing this youth movement. I don't know what the question is with Tyler Guyton or what we're gonna do with him, but
yeah, I think moving forward into next year, I'm confident enough to say Cooper Beebe is going to be your center and Brock Hoffman is going to be your right guard because I think they like those guys there. I think there's going to be questions for every other position. I'm not saying, by the way, that Tyler Smith is not going to be a starter. I think they're going to question themselves. Do we want to keep him at guard? And he has struggled a little bit this year. He wasn't as good as he was last year. I wonder if they don't say, hey, Tyler Smith is actually our best left tackle. Let's put him out there so TJ Bass can come play left guard. And TJ Bass has been a really good left guard for the time he's played. And does that then force them to make a decision on putting Tyler Guyton over a right tackle and then moving on from Terrence Steele? I think these are questions that they're going to have to ask themselves because at this moment, I can only positively say that center and right guard are set because I do wonder if they don't consider moving Tyler Smith, which has a trickle down effect for the rest of the offensive line.
Yeah, because there's no world where I see them moving from Tyler Guyton. When they come to first round picks, they covered those guys. They don't say it's a watch until like 3 or 4 years later. So it's going to be Terrence Still's going to have to go because he could have it the best with the left tackle with Tyler Smith. I think Guyton, that like we've been always talking about, Guyton's best position to succeed is at right tackle, but it just we haven't seen the Guyton that we were kind of hopeful. He's been more of a developmental guy. He doesn't look like the first round graded guy. He's like, let me develop, but we had to put him at starting. So when it comes to that, so getting into our last thing is the Cowboys versus Panthers game. This is the first time where the Panthers are the lead dogs in this thing. They're 1.5 over, and this is the first time since 2022 in December 18. So that's saying a lot for a 3-10 team versus a 5-8 team.
That's almost 2 calendar years.
Yeah.
From when they'll kick off.
Yeah, that's crazy to even that stat's even about. But the Panthers have actually been looking pretty solid. They when it comes to teams, they haven't been getting beat out by teams. Most scores are between 6-3, and they kept it close with the Eagles this year. So, what do you think about this? Who we're playing against the Panthers this week?
I think the Panthers should rightfully be favored. You look at the last 5 games; they beat the Giants, they beat the Saints, and then they had 3 games they should have gotten blown out in, and they were actually relatively close. They almost beat the Chiefs, which would have been the upset of the year. Oh, yeah. They almost beat the Eagles, like you just said, and then they went to overtime with the Bucs, and that one was because of that was from a nice late game save for Baker Mayfield to drive them down the field to get that last second field goal, and they went in overtime with their own field goal. So this Panthers team, when they rejuvenated, yes, I say rejuvenated Bryce Young, because since he came back as a starter after a month of Andy Dalton, he went back and played against the Broncos, and they lost that game by 14, but he had statistically one of his best games of the season. And then from the time that he's regained his starting position, he has 7 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, the best stretch of touchdown interception ratio of his young career. Yeah. So he's sort of like found that rejuvenation that they've been looking for. And I don't know what it is about Alabama quarterbacks, because Tua Tagovailoa had the exact same problem in Miami where he was playing like crap. They benched him, and he came back in and started playing like a Pro Bowl quarterback, and now he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And now with Bryce Young, and now everything's been all his fault. The Panthers' offensive line has been inconsistent. They've had injuries, and the receiving core is old with guys like Adam Thielen. And I think they have something in Xavier Legette, a guy that I really liked out of South Carolina. Mm-hmm. But Jatavian Sanders, their expected their tight end, who's supposed to be factoring huge into this offense, he's been out of the lineup with injuries. Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL once again. Yeah. So sorry for your Longhorn love. And they've had to rely on guys like Tommy Tremble, who coming out of Notre Dame, it was really more of a blocking threat who was supposed to evolve into a receiver who's been solid, but he didn't really have a whole lot of reliable weapons to throw it to consistently. So what he's been able to do with what these guys actually been kind of a positive note on his progression. So I give Bryce Young the credit for that. But I also think that if the Cowboys are serious about playing hard, because Stephen Jones even talked about it, I think they all know that they're not making the playoffs. I know they're not mathematically eliminated yet, but Stephen Jones even talked about it. He said, for the rest of the season, I want us to play hard and do our best to win every game. That's someone who knows they're out of the playoffs. That's someone who knows they're out of the playoffs, but wants the best of the guys for the time they have left. Yeah. The Cowboys have 4 games left, and the Panthers are, by all accounts, the easiest team they have left, and they're playing better. So this ain't an easy game. They still have the Bucs. They still have the Washington, whatever they're going to be from here on out. I don't know if they're going to change their name, and they have the Eagles. So I think the Panthers are rightfully favored because of the way they've been playing over the last 5 games. And I think the Cowboys were sort of brought back to earth on Monday. I think everyone was feeling the high of beating Washington and then 4 days later beating New York. But against Cincinnati, it's the same team we've seen all year, except this time it just looked prettier on the scoreboard. It's the same team that has too many issues, too many injuries, too many inconsistencies, and allows too much. So it wouldn't surprise me if Carolina gets this win. But this is also a team the Cowboys probably should be able to beat, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Do you kind of see it like still as a trap game? Is like I know a lot of fans still think we can beat this team, but like you brought up a lot of facts about this team. They're looking a lot better, and also you got an addition of you got Chuba Hubbard who can run the ball well. He's running over a little over 4 yards per carry, and then
Over the last like 6 weeks, I think I saw a stat where he's one of the 5 leading rushers in the NFL. Yeah. And I think that goes back to when Bryce Young took over, which is why I think that stat was out there. But Chuba Hubbard's been playing a lot better as a result of Bryce Young playing better.
Yeah, and when you think of that, my confidence in the Cowboys winning this game is kind of iffy because we haven't done too well against teams that could run the ball well, and I think they're gonna start running the ball with Chuba Hubbard to test us. And when it comes to Adam Thielen, no, he's not a burner, but he's a guy that will catch any ball that in his way. So
yeah, he's got good hands. He'll still get his catches.
Yeah, he's not gonna go juke somebody out or nothing like that or break out for big yards, but he could get the chain going. And then if you get a running back going with Chuba Hubbard, so that's going to be an issue. And this team allows a lot of yards on this team. Use a lot of yards because you've seen what they did against the Bengals. And after this, it doesn't get any easier for the last few games. So it's
nope.
Like if you're gonna win a game, this would probably be your best opportunity.
I would still think Washington just because you're familiar with them, and I think Washington is having that realization that I've been telling people forever about Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator. I knew him back at Texas Tech. People know him back in Arizona, and I think people like they were fascinated with their first 8-9 games where Jaden Daniels lighted the world on fire, and especially after intercept that the Hail Mary touchdown against the Bears. Cliff Kingsbury has this habit of starting, especially offensively, really well for the season. And then the second half, just laying an absolute goose egg. I've seen him at Texas Tech start the season 7-0 and then finish 5 straight losses. I've seen too many seasons like that where they start off like 5-2, 6-1, 7-0, whatever, and then they finish off 8-5, 7-6, 6-7. So like I think Washington would actually be the easier opponent of the teams left, but Carolina's a team they can beat.
Yeah, that's true. When you think of when it comes to Cliff Kingsbury, it's basically like a roller coaster effect. So it goes real high and then it drops down at the end of the season. But I know we're a little bit short on time, but who do you have as an X factor in this game when it comes to the Cowboys on offense and defense to succeed?
Can I start on defense this week?
Yeah, you can start on defense.
Okay, so the guy who's really going to be forced to take up a lot of those snaps left from DeMar Overshown, but also has been actually pretty solid for what you needed him to do, has been rookie Maris Leofau. Mm-hmm. He's been what I would say he's been a really good closer in the running game over the last couple of weeks, and he's actually giving you something in pass rush. I think he had like a sack and a half or 2 sacks last week against Cincinnati. He was a pick that I heavily criticized because I thought he was a guy you can get on day 3. I didn't think they needed a linebacker that early. I really wanted Marshawn Lloyd out of USC, who went
to the Packers.
Yeah, it was to the Packers. I can't remember if it was a pick after Leofau or the pick before Leofau. I can't remember that, but it doesn't matter. But that's the guy I wanted. But Leofau, for what they've asked him to do, has been solid. But now he's going to have to take up a lot of those snaps. And now it's going to be hair gang with him and Eric Kendricks at the linebacker position. And so I'll be interested to see, especially with the rest of the season really going to him, how he finishes as that second linebacker. And so I think he's going to factor in as well, especially if he wants to stop a Panthers running attack that you mentioned with Chuba Hubbard has been really well over the last 6 games. And when they've asked him to come in, he's been primarily a run-stop type linebacker, and now he's going to have to pretty much be an every-down linebacker. So I want to see what he looks like in expanded role. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I know I was saying, yeah, this is a true test for Maris Leofau, but I think he'll definitely do a great job.
On the offense side of the ball, so I can't really pick one of the offensive linemen yet, just because Cooper Beebe has been at practice, but they haven't cleared him yet. I still wonder if he'll be able to get cleared on a short week. So we'll see about that. I'm looking at Jake Ferguson because last week he got open a bunch. He was frustrated because he wanted to get more of those passes thrown to him. Cooper Rush had this sort of comfort with Schoonmaker, But last week against the Bengals, not last week, this week against the Bengals, we saw Ferguson get open a few times, and Cooper Rush just didn't look his way. And if you look at next gen stats, he over 80% of the time threw the ball to his right, and too often, Ferguson was lined up to his left. And that was unfortunate because Ferguson's a guy who I think has been like waiting to get back out there. I think he really is a difference maker when you give him the ball, but he needs to get those opportunities. And if Cooper Rush doesn't look his way, especially as a security blanket, then he's gonna force a lot of those CeeDee Lamb that ain't gonna be there, or he's gonna make a lot of those really bad throws that we saw against Cincinnati last week if they bring on those double A gap blitzes, because the Cowboys are gonna want to spread the ball out. So let me see where we go from there.
Yeah, because when you think of the backup quarterback, you think he'd be looking more at the tight end as a safety blanket to help out. And you got a player in Jay Ferguson that makes some dynamic plays. So that's my biggest question. But I'm just going to say my offensive X factor, and that's Rico Dowdle going against this Panthers run defense, who's allowed 5 yards per carry. Rico Dowdle ran for over 99 plus yards this week in these last 2 weeks. So hopefully he can continue to do that. And I'm not going to do a repeat. I have Maris Lee Fowl as my X factor, so it is what it is. But
it makes sense.
Yeah, that's why I look at it. So I want to see what Leah Fowl does for us this week, because he looked good in those short amount of time for us in last week's game. But we'll be back next Thursday to talk about next week's opponent and a little bit of college football. So this has been Tacos and Touchdowns. And I got my guy Shane. Did you have anything going on?
I've been busy with my radio duties, so I got nothing really going on until all that settles down.
And we're gonna check you out on the radio before I let you go.
Y'all can check me out on the iHeart app. Go look up the Andy Everett Show. It's on for those of y'all who live in the area. It's on from 4 to 7 weekdays, Monday through Friday. You can check out the podcast on the iHeart app as well. I'm not the official co-host. I am more the tertiary. I'm the producer of the show who gets to co-host occasionally, but you do hear me on the show. That's probably the place most people know me from, if I'm being honest.
All right, definitely go check them out for sure. They definitely do some great work there. This has been Tacos and Touchdowns. Have a good one. Peace.